Welcome to Holy Sabbath Podcast, where we step into God's promised rest, just as He declared in Ezekiel 20:20. Are you someone who's grown tired of just existing, weighed down by shame, disappointment, and hopelessness? Then today's episode is for you. This week, we're talking about the miracle of weight loss, but not just the pounds that drop from our bodies, but the burdens that fall from our hearts. My guest, Missy Badgerow, joins me to share her powerful testimony of how surrendering to God brought transformation not just physically, but spiritually and mentally. Together, we'll explore how prayer unlocks breakthrough, how healing the mind is just as crucial as healing the body, and how our identity is not defined by the number on a scale, but by the unshakable truth that we are children of the living God. We'll also talk openly about the tools God places in our paths, including medical support, and how when we lay our shame and striving at His feet, He brings rest, renewal, and redemption. So settle in, take a deep breath, and join us for a conversation rooted in grace, truth, and transformation. This is Holy Sabbath Podcast, where healing begins and rest is holy. Missy, thank you so much for joining us today on Holy Sabbath Podcast. And today we're going to talk about not only, a weight loss journey, but how God has been a part of that, how He's intervened, how He's opened doors, how you have redemption in that. And so I'm so excited to have you here. Thank you. If you want to introduce yourself.
Well, thank you for having me. My name is Missy, as you already said. And yeah, I'm just here to share not just my weight loss story, but a redemption story, a story where God met me in my brokenness and gave me strength and healing, and really purpose.
Yeah, that's good stuff. So many years have gone by in my life, I can share that, where I didn't acknowledge God's existence. And so for Him to really reveal Himself to us in such a way of not only giving us back our life, but double for our trouble. In Isaiah chapter 61, it talks about how, we will receive double for the things that has been stolen from us or taken from us in our past. And so you're living proof of that today as well. And so we can go ahead and get started. If you'd like to share your testimony journey about your weight loss and redemption in that, and we can talk a little bit more about faith and spiritual renewal as well.
Okay, yeah. So I love everything you just said because it touched on so many parts of my story and places I have been. So, weight has been a big thing for me since I got pregnant at 15 years old, had my first baby at 16. I was a teenage mom. But in that pregnancy, I like doubled my weight. So I went from this 85-pound, people told me I was too skinny, didn't look good, to 169 pounds when I gave birth. By the way, the child was 5 pounds, 11 ounces. So, it wasn't because of the child. It was because I found comfort in food during that time. But really, that was kind of the moment in life where, um, I shaped my view of myself. I went from being this skinny teenager to this teenager who now was overweight. Um, you know, One of the things I can remember back just my entire life thinking about was always feeling like something was missing in my life. Always. From a young child up to, a few years ago, there was something missing. And I tried to fill that missing part, of course, with, boys. And then, food was a big thing for me. I would find comfort in food. In all honesty, I'm a foodie and I like flavor and I like taste, and I would find comfort in that. I also found comfort in drugs. I am a recovering addict today. God willing, I'll have 6 years in August.
Congratulations. It's so exciting.
Thank you. Um, but my story is also filled with the complete opposite of finding comfort in food. I struggled with depression really bad. I was in two previous marriages that were full of domestic violence, and I wouldn't eat during those times when the depression and anxiety and the chaos within my home was at its all-time high. I would stop eating because it was literally making me physically ill to eat. So I would drop all this weight, and then people would have all these speculations on what I'm doing. And, at most of those times I was clean. So it was always people would go back to, oh, she's using drugs.
Yeah. But it was just the depression.
Yeah, it was just the depression. So in February of last year, 2024, I decided that it was time to make this change. I was at 195 pounds. I am 5 foot nothing, and I have a very petite frame, so that weight was extremely heavy for me to carry around. I was always exhausted. I was always hurting. I was always overwhelmed by the simplest tasks, like, oh, I have to go to the grocery store and walk through it. I didn't want to do that.
Yeah, or like going up the stairs,
Oh,
you'd be out of breath and couldn't breathe.
I avoided stairs at all costs. And unfortunately, my house had stairs in it. So to get to my bedroom, I had to go upstairs. But I'd be like, okay, I'm not going upstairs until it's the end of the night. I have like this mental checklist. You need X, Y, and Z. Make sure you have it because you're not coming back downstairs.
Right. Yeah.
Um, you know, it was a task to walk those stairs. Jeez. But I think most importantly, I wasn't going out with my child. I didn't want to play. I didn't want to do anything, and I really just didn't feel like I was living. I was just in existence. And again, there's this hole that's missing inside of me, and I'm trying to figure out what it is. I can't seem, and I knew God. I went to church, and he had restored me in so many ways with my addiction and my family, and just giving me back tenfold everything I had lost in that regard. But there was still something that was missing, and I was mentally miserable. I just was. And even physically. And it was hard. Makes me want to cry thinking about those days. So I made that choice. It was time. We're gonna lose weight.
We're gonna do something about it.
Yep, it's time. I got to do something. It was like I refer back to my addiction and my recovery. I had hit rock bottom finally. Like I had tried all these fad diets and drink this shake and do this fasting, and I'm not knocking them. They worked for some people, but they didn't work for me. It wasn't working. I would lose 2 or 3 pounds, and then I would gain the weight back, and then I was just discouraged. So why keep going? I had met with a nutritionist who told me I was under eating, and I didn't understand what she meant at that point. She wanted me to eat like double the calories that I had been eating, and I thought, lady, you are crazy.
Yeah.
I weigh this much eating half these calories. What I do know today, just through this journey, is that, you actually do need to eat more calories, because you can't put your body in starvation mode. You're not going to lose weight.
Right.
But I didn't understand that then.
Yes.
So, I prayed about it. I asked God for direction and help. And, when I was getting clean from drugs, he had taken that taste from me for drugs. And I just kept praying, God, take the taste of carbs from me, because I love carbs. Carbs are my go-to. I love fruity candy. I love chocolate. I love all the things I'm not supposed to love if I want to lose weight. And I prayed for a long time, like, take that taste from me. Just take those. And he did. He had taken some of those. The carbs I was able to put down. I still struggle with my sweet candy.
With the fruity candies, I'm the same way.
Yes.
Like Lifesavers or something.
Girl, I know. Nothing better than like just, sucking on that Lifesaver, Jolly Rancher.
Yeah.
So, but it's okay because, I know that God's still working for me.
Uh-huh.
And I know that I don't have to be perfect today. And
Yeah.
if I eat fruity candy, I don't lose my worth.
Right.
So I allow myself grace today in that
And a
regard.
treat every now and then, right? You know?
Yeah,
Every
maybe
day
every
even.
day, but
Every
yeah,
day even. I'm the same way though, really. I mean, I'll allow myself, because I like chocolate with caramel or something. I'll
Oh,
allow myself one itty bitty, like those bite-sized candies you can get.
oh yeah,
I'll eat one of those a day,
yeah,
to kind of knock off that.
I will.
Hmm.
I buy them sugar free. So what I found out is that they're not as good sugar free, but it still, for me, satisfies that
Mm.
craving. So, okay, I'm going to get less carbs, less sugars. It's got to be better, right? I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah,
it's got to be the better option.
yeah. Well, you're doing all the right things for sure.
Yes. Well, thank you. So, like I said, I prayed and I welcomed and I asked and I begged for God to come into this.
Desperation had entered,
Girl,
right? You
desperate.
become desperate at that point.
Yes. Yes, I was desperate beyond all means.
Yeah.
Like I was willing to surrender my weight and my body and my thought process to God. Like,
Yeah, I mean, the Bible, it says, we offer our bodies as a living sacrifice to you. And I think that that word surrender you just used, I mean, that right there, the moment we turn our hearts to God and surrender of something, whatever it is, whether it's your taste buds or the weight, or, hey, I'm not in control of this anymore, obviously, then God, he speaks fire over our lives. It talks about it in Daniel chapter 10. It's proof that it works and that he listens to us. Yeah.
and I've been taught that in recovery, but I don't think I understood the depths of what that meant.
Right,
Like,
I have to go through that. I
right.
have to go through that to understand that.
Yeah, like God's gonna help me lose weight, but that was
Mhm.
kind of my initial thought. But like you said, desperation, man. I didn't know what else to do. So, I invited him into that process and
Mm.
I went to my doctor. I had recently moved around this time, so I had to get a new doctor. And I went to this new doctor, and I'm already uncomfortable because I got to meet a new doctor, and they're going to tell me that I'm morbidly obese again. And, because that's what I get told every time I go into the doctor.
Mhm.
And my previous doctor, I'd asked for help with weight loss. And, um, that doctor, she had lost substantial weight, low carbs, high proteins, and that was her solution for me. And it did not work. And every time I went in there, she would remind me, "Oh, you're morbidly obese, and you just need to eat more protein. Quit eating those
I know. I
carbs."
know. Doesn't
And
that get so old? Whenever it's like these things are just not working for my body type. And
right,
so, come up with another solution for people like you and I that can help, because I spent years and years killing myself, literally working out 3 times a day, counting macros, high protein, low carbs, and it did work for a period of time, but I couldn't keep up that consistency, like longevity, like over long periods of time. Like there was times where I had to focus on working, and not going to the gym constantly or whatever. So I can totally relate.
right, no sustainability.
Right.
Like,
And I'm so glad you moved, you met a new doctor. I mean, those could have all been doors that God was saying, "Hey, I'm here for you. I'm going to get you to the right place."
absolutely, those were all doors he opened for me. Because initially, I was going to keep my old doctor. And, it was going to be about a half-hour drive, but that's not really too bad.
Mhm.
I could do it. Well, I got sick, and my doctor that I'd been seeing couldn't see me. So I had called this office right here down the road from my house and, said, "Hey, this is what's going on. I was kind of thinking about it." And they're like, "We can get you in today."
Right.
But God.
But God.
But God,
Yeah.
and that was what like made it official. Like I got this new doctor now, so I went there. I got seen because I was sick. I made, a follow up appointment. Just like establish new patient type
Mhm.
things. And in that appointment, I was so nervous. I didn't want to ask her. She's this, real fit, thin young girl. She's a PA. She's currently in med school finishing up. Um, I didn't want to ask her about weight loss because I just didn't want to hear it. I didn't want to hear how I was morbidly
The
obese
same thing
again.
over
Like,
and over again.
yep.
Yeah.
And, I prayed before that visit and I had asked God, protect me from having to hear that I'm morbidly obese again because that just destroyed me
Mhm.
every time I was told. And, they took my weight and the nurse is entering it in, and she didn't say anything. She just told me what my weight was. I kind of, I looked at her like I was waiting, and she didn't. And I thought, okay, okay. And the doctor came in, and she's doing all her things that she needs to do. And, she's telling me what my blood pressure was and how it's doing. And we got to the weight, and she was like, she told me how much I weighed, and then she moved on. And
Mm-hmm.
I was confused because I'm like, wait a minute, you went into detail about everything else, but she just moved on.
Mm-hmm.
And I thanked God right then. I said, "You heard me, thank you."
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and it built the courage for me to ask this doctor about weight loss, and I did. And she introduced me to a GLP-1.
Mm.
So, of course, my insurance doesn't pay for this. It's like I don't even know, $1,800, $2,000 to buy these from the pharmacy. Nothing I can afford. And she told me, she said, I'm going to send this over to the pharmacy because she said it'll be denied. But I sent everyone over to the pharmacy because I want insurance companies to know that this is necessary. And
Mm-hmm.
the more we send in, maybe that's something they'll recognize.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, good for her. Like,
Yeah.
not just conforming to insurance doesn't pay, nothing we can do. And she followed that up though with, I work with this compound pharmacy in Carmel.
Mm.
She said, I can send that prescription up there. They'll ship it to your house. You don't have to worry about it. It's much cheaper. Um, and I was like, okay, yeah. So it was about $240 about every 4 to 6 weeks getting it that way. And, I started it, was doing great things. But it got expensive,
Mm-hmm.
and I had to make decisions about paying important things or paying for this GLP-1. And I was in prayer about it. Like, I can't keep affording this amount. I was putting on a credit card and trying to get that credit card paid off. And, you know, uh, and somebody I know who also went through a weight loss journey had reached out to me for something completely irrelevant. Um, and I asked her, I said, hey, where'd you get your meds from? Because I
Mm-hmm.
knew that was part of her journey. And she said, she went through the same thing, the doctor, a compound pharmacy. And she said, I just, I realized that there's got to be a cheaper way to do this. And I did a lot of research and I found peptides. And she was ordering peptides. And that was what she had been on for, I don't know, a year and a half at that point. And I thought, okay, well, she hasn't turned into, a zombie or anything. So it's got to be safe
Right.
at this point,
Uh-huh.
because, oh, a little concerned. A peptide from China coming over here. Like, what are you trying to get me to do? Uh, but so I found out that I could get these peptides for like $50 to $100 every 4 to 6 weeks. And I'd been in prayer,
Mm-hmm.
and, God answered that prayer.
Mm-hmm.
He found a more affordable way for me to do that. Um, I'm gonna be honest, I was a little ashamed that I was on a GLP-1 to begin with. Like, I used to call it when people would ask, what are you doing to lose weight? I would say, oh, I'm cheating. I'm cheating. And I
It blocks certain hormones for us though, right?
Right, right. So there's certain hormones. I'm already, starting menopause, so my hormones are like who knows where anyways, and now I've got this GLP-1 and I feel guilty because I'm doing it that way. I'm not doing the exercising 3 times a day and counting and all of this, because society tells us that's what we got to do.
Right. That's what the world says.
Yes.
And we can follow those ways and completely exhaust ourselves. I mean, I ended up in the mental health hospital because of things that I was doing, like sleep deprivation and stress were the two main causes there. But I just mean, like, if you keep doing what the world says, it's just you're not aligned with God's will anymore. And at
Right.
that point, we could end up back in addiction for all we know,
Right.
you
And
know?
that is part of it too, right? So like
Yeah.
active addiction, I've been in recovery now, but I'm putting this pressure on myself now to lose this weight. And then I'm feeling guilty about it. I'm feeling shame about it
Right?
because I'm not doing what this world tells me I need to do in order to lose weight. I'm
and
not.
and that's just the enemy shaming you because of how God has helped you, and
and so let's talk a little bit on how that was making you feel. How did you come out of that guilt trip?
Um, so prayer.
Absolutely.
I did a lot of praying about it. And actually, uh, my husband, his work has a Christmas party every year. And I used to work for the same company, but they hadn't seen me in quite some time because I don't work there anymore. And we went to the Christmas party, and the owners, they were like, Missy, you look so good. You've lost a lot of weight. And I was like, thank you, because I don't take compliments well, anyways. I'm still working on that part. And they asked me how I did it. And I gave them the line. Well, I cheated. I took a GLP-1. And they both had lost weight, and they were the ones that looked at me and said, why is that cheating? And I was like, well, because I'm not doing what the world says.
Mm-hmm.
And, they had a conversation with me. That's how they had lost their weight. And these are people that I respect and I look up to. And, they gave me a lot of encouragement to say that if it wasn't meant for you to be taking this, you would not be taking this. It doesn't mean you're cheating. It means it's a tool. And they
Mm-hmm.
know a little bit about recovery. They always supported my recovery. And they were like, just like your tools in your tool belt for recovery, this is a tool in your tool belt for weight loss.
Mm-hmm.
And it clicked. It
Mm-hmm.
made perfect sense as to, oh yeah, it's just a tool.
Yeah.
Why am I shaming myself over
Mm-hmm.
here? It's a tool.
Yeah.
So that was kind of the overcoming that
God
thought
putting those
process.
people in our lives to have those conversations with, so
Right.
that's great. Okay, so let's talk a little bit. So in total, how much have you lost? Do you care to share?
Yeah, so I will be honest and transparent with my story. I am bouncing right now between 130 and 140. I have this 10-pound.
I think that's for every woman, right?
Right. So like so I have this 10-pound like fluctuation. I started at 195. That's where I was. So, I say 60 pounds. That's kind of the
Yeah.
happy medium between the 130 and 140.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, 60 pounds is where
Lot.
I'm at.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot of weight.
Yeah. Feel better in clothes.
I
You feel
do.
better. You're active with your children. You're better at work. You can go up and down the stairs.
Right.
All those things are given back to us.
Right. I do feel better, but I do want to touch on something that I don't think is always talked about, and that's body dysmorphia.
Okay.
Um, so I suffered with body dysmorphia throughout this whole process, and there has been times even, since I've got to this point of maintaining between 130 and 140 that sometimes I look in the mirror and I still see the 195-pound Missy standing there.
Yeah. Okay. Explain. Let's go into detail about what is body dysphoria. Is
Yeah.
that how you say it?
Oh no, I'm gonna be tongue tied. Dysmorphia. Dysmorphia.
Dysmorphia.
Sorry. I was like,
No, we have
Dy-
a name to it now. We know what the negative self-talk is. It has a name.
yes. So body dysmorphia is a real thing.
It
Um,
is.
it's looking at yourself and not seeing that weight loss, not seeing that progress. And for me that was very real. Um, and I struggled. And God love my loving and supporting husband, who I know has been frustrated with me more times throughout this process than he probably ever has. He just tried to continue to tell me, like, no, you are losing weight. Look at, you're in a smaller size. Like, he would try to point out those physical, pieces of
Facts. Yeah.
evidence, the scale says a different thing. Um, and uh, that scale, man. We'll touch on that scale
We
here
will
in a
touch on that
minute,
scale. Yeah.
girl. But I again prayer, God, but what can God do for you? And I just asked God to help me see myself the way that He did. Because what I do know is that God formed me perfectly, and I couldn't see that. I allowed my thoughts, the enemy, because he is attacking throughout this whole time,
Yeah.
anywhere he can,
Yeah.
and that's it. Body dysmorphia for me was the enemy. He was trying to get me to give up. He was trying to get me not to, believe that God was able to do these things in my life. And, of course, all the things that he does. But I eventually I just surrendered again. Like, God, please help me see this. Let me know that my hard work's paying off. Like, yes, I'm taking a GLP-1, but I also had to change the things that I ate and
You
the
have
way
to.
that I
Trust
ate.
me, it makes you very sick if you don't.
Yes, yes. So it's like, it's more than
Like,
this shot and poof,
I
I'm
think I have food poisoning in here. But
oh,
oh, I forgot. I'm on that shot now. I
yes.
have to watch what I eat.
You got to change what you eat too, because
Yeah.
some things that you maybe didn't even like before are the things that aren't going to make you sick now.
Yeah.
So it was like,
Yes.
I had to be willing to change all of these things. God reminded me throughout my process from the very start, my identity. And my identity was not my weight. My identity was not my body shape or size or the pant size that I wore. My identity was not my children or my husband. My identity was in Christ. That's where my identity.
Daughter of the Most High King.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. And sometimes that's hard to remember.
Especially when the devil knows that. And the devil knows that, and him and his army are just constantly throwing flaming arrows at us. Something that I love is the illustration of the shield of faith. How I love picturing myself is standing behind Jesus as a little girl, but my shield of faith being as tall as the Noah's Ark door. And so
Yes.
there's times where when I'm in battle, I'll just imagine that door goes right on up. I mean, it's taller than heaven. And so, enemy, you can't get to me today.
Right. I love that. I'm gonna have
Hmm
to.
I
I'm gonna have
picture
to
that.
borrow that from
Do
you.
it. Borrow it and
Yes.
use it.
I had to heal my mind just as much as I had to heal my
hmm
body in this weight loss journey and surrendering to God.
Yeah,
Again, I struggle some days, but that's just the enemy trying to creep right back in.
it really is.
But
And
I'm covered in the blood and he
we
has no
are
place.
made white as snow. He doesn't have any place at all. I mean, he trembles. He knows that. He knows that. And so the body dysmorphia is something that really happened to me too. So that first span I had where I lost all that weight, I was 227 and I went down to like 174 was like how far down I went.
Awesome.
Uh but in that time I was struggling with the same thing. I could never see myself for how I looked. And there was a time my aunt who lived out of state, she came to visit and she walked in the door. She said, "Courtney, you don't lose any more weight. Like you've lost enough weight." And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" I couldn't even see it. And years had gone by. I ended up getting a job on third shift and gained 60 pounds really fast. All that weight came right back on. And I was so unhappy and depressed and couldn't commit to working out in the gym anymore, or counting macros the way that I was, couldn't commit to that lifestyle anymore. And so I really just kind of just kept trying and trying and trying, but nothing worked for 2 years until I found the semi-glutide shot. And it didn't really, my body didn't respond to it for about another 6 months. And
Okay.
then when I started responding to it, it was like I was going down little bits at a time. I think I was up to like 215 and I'm down to like 186, I think 185
Okay.
is like,
Awesome.
right. And so I'm actually super in that process. I've learned to be comfortable in my skin, but something God taught me when I was in jail before all this, whenever I was really big and pregnant, 227, he taught me how to look at myself in the mirror and know that I was beautiful. And so all I could see was the blemishes on my face. My face is covered in scars from acne and addiction, and I could never see past those blemishes. And he really taught me how to see myself as beautiful. And that's part of my brand too, is my vision for like a nonprofit I want to start one day is for people to see themselves the way that God sees them. And so you were hitting on that a little bit too. And with us like being able to see, are you able to see yourself today out of the body dysmorphia as
Mm,
opposed to
I would say probably 98% of the time I see it. There's
yeah,
that little 2% of the time that
same.
the enemy creeps in. But I'm glad that you brought that up. So one of the things that I've admired the most about you since I've met you was your level of confidence. Like, you wear that, whether you're feeling it or not, you wear that level of confidence. And I've always admired you for that.
Oh, thank you.
Well, you are welcome. But I have, and I've tried to draw on some of that, like, through my process, and just stop caring what other people think.
It's so hard to break from that people pleaser mindset
Right.
of that stuff's rooted in our childhood, like we wanted to make sure if we were living on eggshells or whatever, we wanted to, and it's also a trauma response. There's the fight, flight, but there's also a fourth one called fawn.
Mhm.
And that's the people pleasing part where we're willing to do anything and everything we can to make sure that that person is satisfied or happy, even though they never will be.
Right.
But
Right.
we do that.
Yeah, interesting story real quick to go with the people pleasing and what other people think. So when I met my husband almost 4 years ago, he asked me, it was, middle of summer, it's like 100 degrees out and I'm wearing jeans. And he's like, "Why are you not wearing shorts?" And I looked at him, I said, "I haven't worn shorts in 20 years." And I hadn't. I had not put on a pair of shorts. I did not own shorts in 20 years because I didn't like how my legs looked, and I didn't think people wanted to, as I stated then, quote unquote, would see that. But had also been in a severe domestic violence relationship where I was body shamed all the time, and he very much so knew where to poke and press that button, and but that first summer, my now husband got me to put on a pair of shorts, and I don't know why I didn't wear these things for 20 years. Like,
my legs can breathe again.
right, like, I don't have to melt in the summer. Just put the shorts on. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, you might still melt, but
Yeah.
like, that is one of those, like, phenomenons to me of just what having the right people in your life also will do. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not suggesting that I found my worth through my husband, because I definitely did not, but that little extra comfort helped to build some of that confidence in
Yeah.
me.
Absolutely. He was the right one for you.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
So you talked on the body dysmorphia and the your identity is in Christ today and not in how you see yourself in the mirror. You obviously, I've seen pictures of you on social media where you're wearing the cutest outfits. You're traveling. You've got your life at home with your family and your husband. You serve God. You have a great career. All these things that God has given back to us, like he will return like what the locusts have eaten. Did you have a little bit that you wanted to share on that part in your life, like the spiritual transformation?
Yeah, whew, God didn't just help me lose weight, he helped me lose all that shame that I was carrying, and I talked about a little bit ago. He gave me, beauty for ashes and joy for mourning, which you had touched, I can't talk now, touched on a little bit in Isaiah 61. Um so, I Joel 2:25 says God will restore the years the locusts have eaten. That verse lives in me. He gave me back double for the years of addiction and pain that had, been stolen from me. It's verses like that where I find that strength. I still have fleshly ways and I can put myself in a pity party. And why did I have to go through all of these things in my life? From childhood trauma through scripture, I've realized I went through a lot of things. I went through things that I wish no person ever goes through. But I also got back double of what had been taken from me.
Amen to that.
I wouldn't be who I am today without each and every one of those trials that I went through.
Yeah. And you made it through, right? You survived all of that, but today you're thriving. And I think that those are promises of God, and we are living proof that promise keeps his word, like that God keeps his word, that he is faithful in all things.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's,
I mean, what was said thousands and thousands of years ago is still applicable for today.
right.
It's still happening today in our lives.
And I still sit back in awe quite frequently, just, being in the Word and then looking at my life and being able to be like, oh, there's God.
Yeah.
Oh, well, there he was too. Even in the times that I pushed God out of my life and he was not going to be a part of it because I was mad at him because he allowed X, Y, and Z. But I can see that today.
Mm-hmm.
And I can see where he works. And I know that as long as I surrender everything, including my weight or my body dysmorphia, um, he's going to show up and he's going to show out too.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, you know, um, every pound that I lost, I touched a little bit on that, wasn't just fat. That was fear. That
Yes.
was trauma.
Amen.
That was insecurity.
That's a great way to put that.
It was years of carrying these things that
Wow.
I was never meant to hold on to.
Yeah, that's really good stuff. I mean, if you think about it, like that's exactly what that is,
Yeah.
and that's why Jesus just says, all who are, burdened and weary, come to me and I will give you rest. And he wants to carry, he is the one who's able to carry all that stuff. And that's why he died on the cross for us, is so that, we won't have to go through life carrying those things. And so, yeah. Was there anything else that you wanted to share on, or any kind of encouragement, as we wrap things up?
Yeah, so I just wanted to kind of talk about, I know that I tended to do this throughout the years of fad diets and whatnot, but idolizing that scale.
Mm.
I'm just as guilty. Sometimes I can get on that scale and get discouraged or give myself a pat on the back. But ultimately, um, the scale is not the measurement in which I try daily to see myself from. God has taught me to measure my progress in the reflection of things, to stop letting that scale
Mm.
be my, measurement of you've lost X, Y, and Z pounds. I look at before and after pictures. You mentioned social media, and I do use those before and after pictures because it really gives me a really good measurement, a visual. I'm a visual person. I
I'm
want
a
to see
visual
things,
person too.
so, and that's something that scale can't give me.
And honestly, the scales is so deceiving because it could stay the same or it could fluctuate in a way where you're like, what? I feel so much better than that. Or like
Yeah,
my clothes fit so much different than that. So I
absolutely.
definitely believe that the scale is an idol as well. And I think that's great encouragement for our listeners.
Yep. So, um, just a few other things I'll touch on real quick for anybody who is struggling right now. You might be in your heaviest season, emotionally and spiritually or physically, but I want you to know that God still restores and He will restore all of that. He did it for me, He can do it for you. You don't have to have this whole thing together and have this whole grand plan of how you're going to lose the weight. And um, you really just have to tell God, ask God, pray to God, I'm ready to try.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I did. I didn't have a plan. I had no idea how I was going to lose this, but I knew that I had finally hit that rock bottom and I surrendered and I just said, God, here I am.
Mm-hmm.
Help me find a way. Take these flavors, or tastes out of my mouth. So don't wait until you feel like you're strong enough to lose weight, because if you're anything like me, you'll never feel that.
Yeah.
And just start where you are. Invite God into that process and watch what He does for you.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we talk about all these miracles in life and how God works miracles. And I don't think that, at least I haven't heard very often, the smaller things in retrospect to life, like losing weight. That's not a big catastrophic thing. I mean, it can be, but, in retrospect to the miracles that we've seen God
Yeah, like splitting
create.
the Red Sea type of thing.
Right. Yes.
Well, hey, he cares so much for the way we look at ourselves in the mirror. He really does.
Right. Yep. So, uh, I used to ask God, why me? Why me? But now I ask God to use me.
Mm-hmm.
And every pound that I've lost, I've continued to thank God for that and give Him the glory for that. Um, and try to share some hope with others. I don't want to make it sound like I'm look at me. But I want, because I know that feeling of struggling with weight for so long. Like, I want people to know that it is possible. Like, and your journey might look different than mine. But what I know is that if you invite God in, He is going to make that journey and make that weight.
I think the miracle of weight loss. I think that, like, that might be a good headliner for this.
Yes, the miracle of weight loss. Like, He performed miracles in me, I'm telling you.
Yeah, and it's a mental thing too. Like, I love how you use the analogy of every pound that went away was the shame and the fear and the regret and just the things that you had carried all these years. Oh, praise Jesus.
Yes, he definitely gets the glory for this. And
Yeah.
it was because as I would lose those pounds, I would start to feel more worthy. I would start to feel like I deserved this. I would start to feel lovable. All things I struggled with my whole life, that I tried to replace those feelings with lots of things. Food. Food was the number one, from a young age on.
I mean, like, currently, and also these, let's say, struggles, it's not like a thing that, like, immediately goes away. I still struggle with emotional eating.
Yes.
Or sometimes it's TV. And I think that both of those things, especially combined, um, is the old me. Like, shows me, like, that's my old behavior. That's the old me. I live in a new light, in a new way today. And, take a walk or something, and I'm struggling with that. Even still, I struggle.
I definitely struggle with that. My biggest struggle is laying in bed at night, watching TV, eating my fruity candies, and justifying why I'm doing it. I do work a full-time job. I am in the middle of an internship. I graduated in November with a BSW. And,
That's amazing.
definitely God. Never thought I'd make it there.
Yeah.
But so at night, I'm like, I'm so tired. I just want to relax and lay in my bed. And, I'm still working on that mindset. And this is going to be a lifelong
You know
journey.
what? When I wake up in the morning, I can't wait to get back in bed at night. Like, it's my favorite thing.
Girl, it is my favorite spot to be. Like, I say that all the time. I'll tell my husband, well, I'm going to my favorite spot.
Yeah.
Because it is. It's like, I need a new way of thinking in some things, but it is like my bubble. Nothing can get to me right now.
I think we're okay to have a safe space. Like, we're okay to have a safe spot, especially in the comfort of our own homes, and something we didn't used to have.
Right.
Right. So I didn't used to have a bed to call home, like, to go and have his favorite spot at home. So
Right. No
definitely,
home, no bed.
I'm always thanking God for my bed.
I am just thankful for everything that God has done in my life today. The way He has changed my thinking, the way He's changed my parenting. There's just so many things to list, but I'm so thankful for everything that He has changed within me, every barrier He has removed from my life, and every barrier He has put there, because there were things at one point in time in life that I wanted that were not good for me, or people I wanted,
and not open that door, move that mountain.
Right. And
I think at the beginning of the session, you mentioned, like, praying for that discernment too. And I think that that's another really good encouraging thing for our listeners to hear is, like, one, surrender, definitely two, pray, three, understand that it's a process. It's not just a physical thing, but it's a mental thing. And
absolutely.
yeah,
That's and it is a process. And I think that was one thing that I struggled with, was understanding this is a process. It's gonna take time. Here I am, where are we at? I don't know, a year and 4 months later, and I feel like I blinked and it happened.
that's right.
But I do remember in those beginning times, like, oh, I only lost a pound, and I did have to change that thought process, and I did have to start giving praise and glory to God for that 1 pound, and I started losing more pounds per week, and it was, whether it was because God made that happen. I also changed my thought process on that. I had more encouragement for myself and taking just that negativity away. So I'm not comfort eating. So I'm not pity partying myself. So yeah, it is a whole mind, body, and spirit transformation throughout this weight loss journey.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, Missy, thank you so much for coming and sharing with us today. And I know this is going to speak to so many listeners who are struggling with that weight loss journey themselves. And so, do you have a closing prayer that you would like to say?
Yeah, absolutely. Father God, thank you for being my restorer, my healer, and my strength. Thank you for walking with me through addiction and depression and shame and every battle that I have faced, whether I knew you were there or not. You loved me when I couldn't love myself. You gave me beauty for ashes and turned every breakdown into a breakthrough. I don't stand here today because I'm strong. I stand here because you are. You helped me lay down every idol, especially the one I made out of that scale, and reminded me that my identity is in Christ. Thank you for restoring what the enemy tried to steal. Thank you for giving me back double for every year of pain. For those who are listening and feel lost in their own bodies and stories, Lord, I just ask that you would wrap them in your love. You would speak peace over their chaos and let them know you still restore.